All right, we are live on the internet with our very good friend Jared Christianson. We have Tosh Cox with us, and we're live on the Alice page, on Tour Router, on all the different places. Alice.tv, which is our Twitch page. Jared Christianson here is an incredible all-around dude. I met him a few years ago doing some like music marketing stuff together. And we're just like so over the moon to have him with us right now. We're going to be talking about all things tour, maybe some like music marketing stuff, and just like geeking out on what our idea is of the unwritten rules of the road. And basically, the Unwritten Rules of the Road is it's both like a book and a blog and like a video series that Tosh has actually put together that essentially literally talks about like what are the unwritten rules of the road. And there are so many because touring, starting out as like a DIY band, touring, like you just learn a lot of stuff along the way. And there's just so much that goes into it. And anyways, to make a long story short, Jared plays in an incredible technical death metal band called ARKAIK. We're if you're not familiar with the band, definitely check them out. They're incredible, and they have been heavily touring as well, playing a lot of shows. And yeah, so we're just here to just talk about all that stuff. So yeah. Hey Jared, yeah, do you want to just like give us like a quick background of who you are, like, and what you've done in terms of like touring and your band and all that fun stuff?
Sure. Well, thank you guys again for having me. Love you guys and grateful to be here. Um, so I come from the metal world, metal in general, and specifically like the sub genre of like technical death metal. So there's like metal, death metal, then technical death metal. It's like, you know, a
Yeah.
subgenre of it. And um, it wasn't always technical. It was just metal back in the day when we first got started, which was 20 years now. So like the band officially, you know, played our first notes in 2004 in Southern California, 20 years ago, and was just a outlet for um, hanging out and friendship and just doing something that wasn't dirt biking because in Southern California that's all there is. And
Yeah.
so we played a lot of local shows for from 2004 to about 2010 was our kind of coming up, uh, also figuring out lineups and figuring out like um, what do we want to sound like. All that stuff
Mm.
happened for about, I guess, yeah, so like 6 years, 5 years, and we uh, we um, we eventually figured out that playing live shows and touring and everything that we wanted to do was um, dependent on us being like a tight band and networking and playing a role in our local community, putting on shows, playing shows, hanging out, just
Mm.
building friendships. And um, so for about 6 years, we did that. In 2010, we put out our first album. We got signed to a label called Unique Leader Records, and they were a very like awesome label. It was a big, like incredible feat. That was our whole goal. Just let's get signed. Um,
Totally. Yeah.
and
You guys still signed to them?
not anymore. We did
Mm.
uh, two album deals with them from
Yeah.
2010 to 2016, and it was a huge learning experience. Like just um, putting out music, putting it like the whole like getting signed thing was proving it was all almost like validation. Like,
Yeah.
can we prove to ourselves that this label owner thinks that we're cool and that our music is good. Um,
Right. Well, I know it's like it's such a big goal of a lot of bands is like when you first start a band is like, okay, like we got to get signed, like what do we do? Like that's like sometimes like I remember when we first started and I was playing when I first started playing in bands, it was always like, all right, like we're doing all this stuff, but when are we going to get signed? And that was always like sort of like the holy grail. I remember when I was like,
yeah.
first playing in bands and everyone's like, oh, I talked to like so and so at like, A&R rep at Capitol Records or whatever. And it's just like, it seemed like it was like sort of chasing a sort of like the proverbial rabbit. But I mean, just to like, I mean, it's such a great milestone though. Like, and it is, like you said, it is like, validation, as an artist, as a musician. It's like, oh my God, like this company wants to invest money into marketing what I'm doing, and that's so incredible. Um so that's I don't know, that's an incredible story. I don't mean to interrupt, but feel free to keep going. I'm really enjoying this. So
Yeah, like that was the goal in the beginning because it was,
mhm.
again, it was 2006 to 2010 where we were like putting targets on what do we want to do, and it was always like get signed. Like
Yeah.
that was the goal. Um 4 albums
Yeah.
later, it's not it's not as um I think today in 2024 it's so like not the goal, like shouldn't be
For
your
sure.
goal.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
but it did help us get on tour. Like our first tour that we did was a label organized tour, and then the next two tours were also from the label. Like we didn't have a booking agent, but we had put out our debut album on Unique Leader, and those like that album got us, and the next album got us like a bunch of big tours through
Yeah.
that, and like that helped kind of like solidify us as like not just a local band. We're touring with Black Dahlia Murder now. We're touring with Cannibal Corpse, like the
That's huge.
biggest
Yeah.
metal bands. And um, so that's how essentially how it all started. We were like basically a local band trying to write, metal, and then we discovered technical death metal, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. Like,
Yeah, it
what?
is. It really is.
And then we never went back. Like, you just can't go back.
Mhm.
We got this really cool question. I want to give a shout out to Sean for your question. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out. Sean is asking what band inspired you to want to be an artist or want to be in a band?
Ooh, such a good question. Like, really? I mean, punk music. Uh, Early on, I didn't have anybody musical in my family, but I did have musical, like my mom's dad was musical, so I guess it's kind of skipped a generation.
Mhm.
Um, but I was, musically inclined, showed an interest, started playing guitar when I was in like fourth grade. Um, and Green Day was it, I was like, oh, that's cool, Green Day.
Think about
And then
that's a good one.
yeah, and then my I owe a lot to my cousin Robert, who showed me like NoFX and Pennywise and like Bad Religion and like a lot of the punk bands, like Warped Tour, like old school Warped Tour punk bands. And he's like, "Yeah, dude, like, see all these bruises on me? This is from the pit." I was like, "What? What's the pit?" So he like introduced me to like the whole world of punk music. Um, then I met Chance, who in middle school, like that's where ARKAIK started. I met a friend who's still my best friend to this day. He was the best man in my wedding. Um, Co-founder of ARKAIK.
Hmm.
And we both played guitar. And he's like, dude, have you heard of Limp Bizkit and Korn? Like it was in the new metal, the rise of new metal. And I was like, no, dude, like tell me about it. There's 7-string guitars. And I was like, all right, let's get 7-string guitars. So we both bought 7-string guitars and started like learning corn riffs and stuff. That's kind of where it all started. It was like
Hmm.
punk and new metal emerging and me with the guitar and my best friend.
Hmm.
I freaking
That's
love that
pretty
story.
amazing. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Like it doesn't get much better than that, right? Especially when you get to make music with the people that you love, that's just, it doesn't get much better than that for sure.
Yeah,
I
Actually,
could,
oh, go ahead, Scott.
good.
oh no, I was going to say like I could just relate a lot to your story because I feel like I have a lot of similar influences. Like, we sort of grew up, listening to very similar stuff. But yeah, anyways, go on, Tasha.
Oh no, it's a little bit of a tangent, but you're getting a really cool question from Brian. Brian, thank you for your question. He's asking Jared, he checked out your stuff. It's very powerful. And he's asking, is it hard to keep your voice in good shape?
Good question. It actually is. I'm gonna say that I used to say no, it's not that hard. Uh, but about 4 or 5 days of consecutive set, doing a full set, like, anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour, and then talking all night, just functioning in a loud environment, that does take a toll. And what I've realized is just one day of rest is so important. Like doing 6 days, 7 days, 8 days in a row is hard. Like that's what my voice won't sound the same. It won't function the same. So there is a cap on it. There's like, even with recording too, like I can only go about 4 hours tops of brutal death metal screaming and growling and stuff before I'm just like, it's not getting any better. I got to take a break.
Do you have like an ideal like number of days that you like, that you like to go before you have your day off? Like, is there like a sweet spot in terms of that?
Yeah, I think it's like 3 to 4 days. If we could have a day off every 3 to 4 days for a voice rest day, like that's perfect.
Do
But
you
as you
have
guys
like,
know, you
yeah,
can't
that's kind of
always,
hard.
you know, if a date shows up on the calendar and like, you're booking a tour and we got to hit Salt Lake City.
Hmm.
And the only date, is that day. So, there's that. But yeah, a day off definitely helps for the brutal vocals.
Do you have like a specific like warm up routine or warm down routine that you do to get ready for a show?
The warm-up routine for me is a little bit of vocals beforehand, just kind of while everything's really noisy, I'll be like, whoa, kind of like get things going. But it's not, oh, and there's this like serum that you can get on Amazon. It's like this, whoa, my my camera zoomed in,
I
but
know, that was awesome.
this is AI camera. Um, but there is some stuff that you can do, like a throat coat kind of thing, that also does help. It does make a difference. I've tested it. I've A/B tested it.
That's awesome. What is it called again?
I
Do
don't
you
know.
remember?
I don't know the exact brand.
Yeah,
I know Tosh is taking notes.
I know. I'm like
But
taking notes. I always like to pick up tips and tricks for like vocal remedies for sure. Um, yeah, Alexander was asking about like vocal warm-ups and I myself like it depends on the style of vocals that I'm singing. When it's more aggressive, like I feel like it actually takes more of a warm-up because it's like I feel like you're about to put your voice through the ringer. So it's like I like to get my whole body going. So, get the diaphragm going, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the nature of our music is really like it's almost a sport. Like the drums are going so fast. I mean, our drummer's an athlete at this point.
yeah,
Like he's
it's
more of
has
Oh
to
yeah.
be very athletic.
he's a great musician, but he's also very much like an athlete and treats his music
Yeah.
like a sport almost.
Oh,
Um,
100%. Yeah.
Makes me think of
Especially,
Danny Carey. Like I always see him wearing like the sports jerseys and stuff, and I feel like every drummer is like has to be sort of an athlete. Um, yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I mean, I am not a drummer, but on the few times that I've sat behind a drum set, I'm like, how do you move all of your limbs like that with like such
Mm.
precision and being able to do it for an entire set? Like it's amazing. It's pretty mind blowing for sure. Yeah.
yeah, shout out to the drummers, and they got
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
gear.
Seriously, so much gear, so much
For
gear.
sure.
I always help the drummer. Like I know what it's like to be a drummer. I've been a drummer in a couple other like side projects, been a drummer in a cover band. So I know the hardships, and I always like try to help the drummer out, like load in, load out, um,
Mm.
get on and off stage quickly, you know, to speaking of like touring and stuff, like I feel like that's one like timing. Don't I'm sure you guys know this. Like timing is everything. Like when are you supposed to go on? Especially if you're like the
Mm.
headliner, you're going on last. It's like if you are slotted to play 10 o'clock and you have five bands before you, you're playing 10:45.
For
If
sure.
nobody's there, if you're lucky, you're paying 10:45. He might play 12
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you're
Oh
lucky.
yeah. Oh
The
yeah.
promoter might be like, "Oh, let's push this back. We want, we're just waiting for the crowd to come. It's like a late crowd or something." So, yeah, definitely
Actually,
know that.
I want to speak to that. We're actually getting an awesome question from our amazing friend at Cranial Nerve Entertainment on YouTube, who actually is a promoter
It's
who
a cool
runs
name.
things on times. Yes, it's awesome. He's an amazing promoter in Des Moines, and it's incredible because he actually runs things on time. I'm like, Zach, you need to like make a handbook on how to run things because this is
Yeah,
amazing.
shout out.
So
Yeah,
he
it's
actually has a
great.
question. What are some of your favorite artists that you've toured with throughout your musical career? Wildest, craziest, most compassionate. So some of your favorites you've gotten to play with.
Yeah, definitely the Black Dahlia Murder was our third tour, or no, it was our second tour ever. And they
Wow.
were very established at that point. So we went from, we played all around Southern California, Northern California, regionally. And that was like a big eye opener, was touring with them. And they were so nice to us and like taught us. We left our sample pad at the venue before like one night, and then we showed up we were like sound checking, and because we were like the first band, so we got to actually do a legit sound check, and we're like, oh no, our sample pad's missing. And then like they're like, hey, we got it from the last venue, quit fucking up, like remember your shit.
That's awesome.
Stuff like
Very
that.
cool.
Like they're just so nice to us, and got to see what a touring band looks like, from just our first couple tours. It's super established, like what their merch stuff was like just yeah, that was a big one. That one always, hits home. The other bands, Psychroptic, there's a band from Australia called Psychroptic. We've toured with them twice now. Never, ever in my wildest dreams thought I would ever tour with Psychroptic from Australia. Well, super obscure
That's
band.
awesome.
Yeah.
And they're doing great now. Like they've continued to, work hard and put out albums. And yeah, they're just one of those bands that I'm just like always in awe of their musicianship. And yeah, those Psychroptic, Black Dahlia Murder, I don't know, like done some festival style tours where there's like 7 bands all on the road.
Wow.
Wow.
Every
That sounds
night, like
crazy
That's
the
fun.
same 7 bands.
Wow. That's amazing to coordinate that. That's
That's
a
a
lot.
tour package right there.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, Jared, you played with a lot of bands and at a lot of different levels. Like, what would you say like sets apart a band that seems a little bit more like, I guess, like that has more experience being on the road versus a band that doesn't? Like, what are some of the things that sets a band apart?
It's the little stuff. It's like the simple little things, not their set. It's everything but them on
For
stage.
sure.
Yeah.
Showing up on time, loading out, loading in like on time, just being a helping hand, like being able to, help it's like the show, like every night it's the same show. So like, after a couple nights you get it. And the bands that that we love are like the ones that are helpful and that understand that it's like a group thing,
For sure.
not just band for band. It's like a group participation thing. Drummers help drummers, with like all their setup and stuff. Yeah, so
yeah, that seems to be like a universal thing. I know, Tosh, some of the things you're writing about actually is very similar to what Jared's talking about. Just sort of like those are literally like there are some of these that are like these, they're not like written down anywhere, like it's just sort of like once you start doing it, you get sort of the general knowledge just from doing it,
the unwritten
like
rules, if you will.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Well, yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's something where like it is a music community, and so it's awesome when you encounter kindred spirits that are like, yes, we are here together. We're here to create an experience, an environment together. and let's help each other. Like that, it's absolutely. And also it's like a genuine love for the music, right? Like that's one of my favorite parts of a live show is like, oh, it's like a whole night of music. That part's awesome, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And
No, that's great.
especially like night after night, you know, like the more what I've realized is before the tour, if you could just touch base with people, you know, like maybe a Zoom call and just be like, hey, with the band leaders, hey, what are you planning to bring? You know, so people don't end up bringing like a stack of cabinets when like they don't need to. Like
Hmm.
we
For
can
sure.
share
Yeah.
like guitar cabinets just to make the changeovers work. And you know, this and that, like just kind of coordinating that beforehand and instead of walking into the venue on the first night and being like, hey everybody, I've never met you in my life. How are we gonna work this out? You know, just kind of
Yeah.
having some rapport prior to touring, like that's a big one that all of my tours, if we're especially if we're organizing the tour, is gonna be like, let's band leaders or whoever wants to be a part of it, let's meet up beforehand and let's hash out the details of how we can make it really work for everybody prior to showing up first day. That one's
Yep.
huge, huge learning lesson.
Yeah, that's actually awesome because too, like when you show up then it's like you were saying, you already have a rapport, so you don't have that awkward like, oh hi, introductory, like, you know.
Yeah. I guess we're living together for the next month.
Yeah. And by the
We're
way, it
getting
takes me
a
2 hours to set up my gear. But
yeah.
anyways,
Yeah. Yeah. I have a special I have a special setup that, you know, needs this and that. It's like, cool, let's hash that out beforehand. Just make sure it's
Mhm.
um, conducive for everyone.
Yeah,
For sure.
for sure. Yeah, I think that's something that I've noticed is like when you um play with people that are more experienced with playing, like that's something that they're aware of, where it's sort of like it's not just about your show and your set. It's about the whole night and the whole community, you know.
Yeah,
So
totally.
we're getting a awesome question from Ed Webb. Thank you for your question. It's asking, what's the craziest show that you've ever played?
It's hard to put on a list or, you know, think because um, Montreal goes hard, goes really hard for death metal.
Really. Wow.
Yeah, and we've had some of our like some of our, you know, in the best venues, like the nicest, coolest venues, best staff, best fans, really appreciating the music, and like just really good turnouts in Montreal and Quebec.
Mm.
So French Canada goes hard for technical death metal.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I would never
Yeah.
have thought.
Mm.
Just that's awesome.
Yeah, that is
Have you
awesome.
guys done a lot of international touring in general, or has it mostly been in the States and the this continent, I guess?
It's this continent. Yeah,
Yeah.
we our first European tour was all booked. We had some festival dates, and it was in 2020. It was like
Oh,
May.
oh
It was like
no.
Yeah.
May 2020.
Oh man. I feel you on that.
That was, you know, we were all in, dates booked, got a driver, um, you know, like put a down payment on a driver who ripped us
Mm.
off and never
Oh
paid us,
no.
like just took our
Well,
money. After the,
Oh,
you know, COVID hit, I get it. It was hard for
right.
everybody. But my
Yeah.
booking agent still likes to hit him up and be like, "Hey, do you have that deposit? Like you weren't necessarily supposed to spend that money." But mostly it's been United States and Canada. Like, you know, you got Vancouver on the West Coast, and then you have Ottawa on the East Coast. You have Ottawa,
Mhm.
Quebec, Montreal, um, Ontario.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Those four ones like are always a good, like always worth it to cross the border to like go hit those Canadian dates, even if you have to lie and say that you don't have any over $1,000 of merch or whatever.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it is always kind of a thing to figure out how to do the border crossings. For sure. Yeah. Actually,
So
so oh, sorry, go ahead, Scott.
I was just gonna really quick. I was like, just one question that I actually have for you, Jared. Because I know like you're very versed in like the modern digital age of like marketing when it comes to music and all that fun stuff. Do you feel like my question is basically like, what is for you like the modern approach to like because like the idea I remember like me first starting out in touring is basically was like all right to get your music out it's just you have to like play shows and it's like the only way to like get out there as a band but I know things are different now there's obviously like all the online social media there's Spotify, YouTube, live streaming and all that. Like knowing all that, like, would you still have made the same decision? Like if you were just starting out now, would you still have decided to like really pursue playing a lot of shows and touring and taking the same path?
For my genre, absolutely, it would be the same.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just it I had a friend of mine ask me this recently, like if you were to start over, what would you do differently, or um, what would you do? And it's still play shows, um, or even if you can't play shows, go to shows, boots on the
Yeah,
ground. Like it's still
totally.
there's a very boots on the ground component that I believe in that makes things happen, like connections, friendships. Like that's what music is about. The marketing side absolutely would, it's a different landscape today. Um, so go all in on your recordings, just make the best music possible because like you can't really market crap. Like you can't
Yeah,
it like the it makes it so easier if you have really good music that somebody just hasn't heard that they want to hear, then
for sure. Yeah.
half baked brand, half baked recording, half baked everything. Like
Hmm.
so if I were to do it again, it would be like invest in a good logo, a good artwork, good photos, good
Marketing.
recording, and but not splurge in the way that we used to, where we're like, we got to write a 12-song album. Like you don't necessarily need to do that now. You could just focus on a few songs and put those songs out and put content out around it.
So true.
And then learn digital marketing, learn how to like, get your music out there while you sleep, which ads don't sleep, which, I'm a big proponent of. Um, Instead of posting all the time, you can put your tip of the iceberg content out there and gain a lot of followers if it's good, right? Like if
Yeah,
it's truly good, it
totally.
will resonate and you can pour, lighter fluid on the fire if you have that. But I would absolutely like still be a participant, whatever city you live in, participate,
Yeah.
go to shows, hang out, shake hands, be helpful, that kind of stuff goes a long way. And it will always go a long way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, this is an artistic question for you, Jared, but like, how do you know, like, when your art feels complete, especially the musical part?
It never does. Like, when is this song done? Like that's such a hard thing.
So hard.
When it has a beginning and an end, like that's kind of like if the song starts and ends and it feels like a complete song, like that's that's kind of where I go now. Like it's always a whip if it doesn't have like a fully like, and also like I do think there is a formula for music structure and writing songs and stuff. So yeah, our genre, technical death metal, gets really lost in the weeds when it comes to like songwriting. And it's just like this riff, that riff, this riff, nothing repeats.
Mhm.
And that's cool. It's like, no, it's not that cool. A good song is still a good song, whether you're playing a million notes or not. So that's kind of
Yeah.
like my uh, modus operandi is like, does it have a hook? Does it feel complete? Um, is there space for everybody? Space for the bassist, space for the guitar. We usually do a solo. It's rare that we don't do a solo in a song. So like, when does the solo come in?
Mhm.
All that kind of stuff is I focus on now more than ever because again, it could just be one song, that really hits. So like, focus on the song.
Yeah. It's
Do
so
oh,
true.
sorry, that's Scott.
I was
Well,
just
do
gonna
the
say that's
lyric,
just
oh, I was gonna ask you about for you, the lyric
oh, go
writing, do
for it.
you feel like does that come first, or do you feel like the music kind of leads and guides where your vocals will go, or does it kind of go hand in hand?
The music absolutely, like for ARKAIK, guides the direction of where the song goes. Um, Normally, lyrics are the last thing, like, or vocals, like they're not the last thing, but they're the in the cake that we're baking. I always put them on last. I'm just like, let's focus. If it can be instrumentally good, then the lyrics are just a bonus.
Mm.
So I try to like nowadays focus on let's make the song really good instrumentally, knowing that there's going to be vocals on it, and kind of keeping in mind, is this where the vocal is going to be heavy, where the vocal is going to cut back. But yeah, it's always like an afterthought, but then the concepts and the lyrics and stuff are always brewing. Like it's happening all the time. And just writing things down and like um Notion. Thank God for uh,
For
Notion.
sure.
Like I'm so much more organized than I used to be.
Yeah, I know with technical death metal too, it's very rhythmically guided. So, like, I'm sure that coming up with the lyrics and the words, it's like you are like subconsciously also probably really like trying to lock in with all those rhythms, you know?
Yeah, it's a percussive element to the song. It's a da 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 da.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
very percussive, and then I feel like it's painting. It's like, to me, it's very much like painting. Like you have the layers, you have like the canvas, and laying those base layers of the uh, drums, and then and riffs, and then the vocals are like the tip of the iceberg kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I remember reading or hearing an interview from Maynard from Tool who said something similar, that he was very musically driven the way he wrote his vocals and stuff. So.
Just saw Tool here in Las Vegas,
Oh,
in
was it?
sold out T-Mobile Arena.
Oh my
Just
gosh,
like
Wow.
killing it
Yeah, they're
still.
beasts.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
So we're
So,
getting asked actually from Sean some great questions. How can a fan get an autograph? And what's your most collectible item from your traveling? Couple questions there
So
for
you
you.
you can get an autograph if you go to www.arkaikband.com. We have some CDs and vinyls uh, that are autographed CDs and vinyl, which I have over here. But the whole band got together a couple weeks ago, and I was like, we got some CDs and some vinyls. I went and bought a silver Sharpie. I was like, let's autograph these so we can kind of put them on the store. So that's how you can get those. And then what was the second question?
What's your most collectible item from your traveling? Like what is that?
Tour posters. That's my,
Ooh,
yeah.
yes.
I
I love
cherish those more now than ever. I have like on the wall over here, you can see I've got some those are some
Ooh,
ARKAIK tour posters that I've finally framed.
Wow.
So
Oh my gosh.
those are those are
well,
the
it's
cherished
like
ones.
I feel like the tour posters are such a great sort of like single pieces of art because each tour is different and there's always like awesome artwork, and it's always just so varied and different. So yeah, my studio looks the same where I have a bunch of like Alice posters all over the walls, and I need to frame them though. That would be the next step.
Yeah, well, I moved here like 3 months ago, and I was like, if I'm gonna like, really set up my space, I found like I have this like a tube that I put in the merch box for tour posters to keep them like safe. And so I pulled out like the tube and I was like, oh, let's put this one, frame it, frame it. So yeah. Um special special little, you know, things for the road.
It's
And I
awesome.
love too, like each one has its own art. So it like commemorates like that particular chapter for sure. Yeah. Are there any other places to find you, or would you say archaicband.com is like the main place to find y'all with all the
ARKAIK, our merch is arkaikband.com. That's our merch store. Um Social ARKAIK official on Instagram, and then just ARKAIK on Facebook, and that's pretty much it. We're not really on TikTok.
yeah.
Nice.
That's the new horizon.
The next frontier.
Yeah, the next frontier.
Yeah.
Well, each platform definitely has its own community and its own personality, and I think it's probably just a matter of finding like where you fit in those different worlds.
Well, I mean, like our audience is on TikTok. That's
Hmm.
that's the bottom line. Our
Yeah,
mom's on TikTok.
So true.
Like
Yeah.
everybody's on TikTok nowadays. And it's video first. It's a video first platform. And I think it's hard to kind of find your lane in that, like being video first kind of thing. So shout out to anybody, props to anybody who's, crushing it on TikTok. But I do feel like it's just another like part of where we should be, right?
Yeah.
Like your guys's people who haven't discovered Alice are like on TikTok
Absolutely.
and ARKAIK, you know, like they're there. They just haven't seen your content yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how are you gonna show up and what's your content strategy, all that stuff. It's a whole nother, you know, nowadays you're the label, you're doing everything. You guys know this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because you were talking about you know, having that chapter in which that you set the goal of being on a label and you were, but I'm sure that from that experience it would like really gave you an awareness of like what you need to do as an artist to be able to get yourself up there, right?
Yeah. And it's not a silver bullet.
Yeah.
Like labels essentially are partners. That's how I think about it now. And the right partnership can really help. And I'm not anti-label, but I also know that they suck at marketing. So uh, you should learn it, you know, yourself, and you're expected to do it even if you're on a label or not. Like you're expected to do the content marketing no matter
Of
what.
course.
So like
Yeah.
that's a piece of the pie you got to figure out no matter what, label or no label.
And you also have to realize like a label, has however many artists that they're going to be pushing at one time. So it's like, you know, you have to be your own advocate, I think, as an artist and as a band, like no label's gonna like do all that work for you, especially now.
Yeah, they can handle like
Mhm.
what I like about labels is they can handle a lot of the product element of a release. You
Mhm.
know, the distribution globally, like um, they can help with that. So it's one thing that's not on your uh, table to do.
Yeah.
But I don't even know. I mean, nowadays, I just think like what is the value of the
Yeah.
label? You know, you really have to ask yourself that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, and especially like you know, like having the awareness and even passion that you have for being able to market yourself, you know, and having a clear idea of who you are, right? Like I think when you're genuinely excited and passionate about like the art that you're creating and putting out there, like I think that just comes naturally, right? Like you're like, this is who I am and I want to share this, you know?
Yeah, it comes a lot easier. If you don't know who you are and you don't have a strong brand, um, that's hard, you know. That should be figured out early on, or should you should contemplate that and spend some time. Who am I? What am I? What's my voice? What's my message? What's the overall vibe? All that stuff's super important, especially now. Like, I mean, good luck like not having that figured out. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's on the horizon for you and Archaic, Jared? Are like, you know, in terms of the upcoming year and things that you're envisioning for the future?
yeah. So, we're putting together a tour in July, and we're
Nice.
deciding what bands we want to take out. It's going to be a headliner. And we have a tour in November where we're supporting act for, I actually can't say it, but band from Germany. And those are the touring, like couple tours a year. Um, Try to hit, you know, all the major markets or US, Canada markets. And then I want to put out a single. I think that's another thing. Like we
Mhm.
did experiment with that prior to the last album. We put like a single out in between albums. So from album 4 to album 5, we put a single out, and it was awesome. Like it allowed us to like put music out and not have to put a whole album out. But then what I realized is that single should really be connected to the overall next big piece album, because people were like, why isn't this song on the album? And I didn't have like a good answer. I was like, I don't know. It was just a single. We just put it out. Like we didn't think that much into it. It kind of conceptually was a bridge from different eras of the band, but also covers. I want to experiment with doing ARKAIK covers. Why not?
Nice. Yeah.
Fun. And that can help, hugely. Like, recently my wife and I got a Subaru, and it came with like Sirius XM, like free for 3 months or whatever. And then we ended up like, okay, it's $6 a month for Sirius XM in our car. But they have liquid metal, they have octane, like it shows me like what the current things. It kind of keeps me up because I'm an old guy now. I'm like 36. I'm like, I don't know what's cool now. Like, so it's nice to hear like what's popping, but also they do like corridor of covers. This like section, an hour of covers, and I was like, what song should we do cover wise? So that's another thing we're planning. It's just like try to do something cool and like not super gimmicky. So I was like, we could do like the Barbie song, death metal version
for sure.
And like, sure, it has a lot of like its virality score is high, but it's like cool factor is like a 4. So like, and we asked our fans, like, that's what's cool about what we do. You guys are amazing at it, but like having a community where you can actually ask your fans for advice and feedback or something like that helps so much. So that was helpful in like trying to pick some stuff.
Sean said death metal SpongeBob song.
Yeah,
and Richard
exactly,
is saying
right.
Richard is saying Quiet Riot's Bang Your Head.
Yes, quite right. Absolutely. That's a great one.
Oh man. Yeah,
Sean is also saying that Sean is also saying you should come to San Francisco.
We'll be there, San Francisco or Santa Cruz or San Jose.
Yeah.
We're always hitting that on whatever tour. We'll be there.
Sorry, Scott, I cut you off. What you were saying?
Oh yeah, that's
covers.
all good. Yeah, I was just gonna say covers have always been really fun for us, and like it is really like at this point a fan participation sort of like thing. It's really awesome having the idea of like involving all of your fans to help you decide like what kind of covers to do. It's we're really excited about that as well. So
you got some stuff in the works. What do you guys got like in the works? What's
big list?
What's 2024 looking like for you guys?
Well, we do have tours coming up as well. Our spring tour launches in 6 weeks, so we're actually playing Dark Force Fest out in New Jersey. So I built a tour to get us there and back. Super excited. Going to get to visit the motherland, which is Texas for half of us. So getting some mom food in there and seeing friends and family, which is always awesome. And just working on the second half of our double album, So Below. So we have some new music on the horizon, itching for the covers as well. Like we have a list of covers that have been suggested, and we're like, oh, they all sound amazing. So like, can we just snap our fingers and it just be done?
I know,
Not that I
right?
don't love
I
the
know.
process, but yeah, it's like it's a very big list because I think all of us, I think I speak for all of us, is that we're all like very like ambitious in the sense that we're
Yeah.
like, oh, there's all these things we want to do, you know, and experience, and it's part of the bigger vision, I think. But yeah, that's kind of on the immediate horizon for us is lots of shows and finishing off the album. Yeah.
It's a
Awesome.
constant
Tell me about Tour Router. Like where
Yeah,
are you at with it
definitely.
right now? Because
Um,
I got
yeah,
logged
so
in, I got my account. It looks
awesome.
sick.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
haven't
like,
planned a
it's,
tour on it
yeah,
yet, so I'm gonna absolutely like use it.
yeah, awesome. Yeah, we're really
Thank
excited.
God.
Tour Router is something we've built out of years and years, obviously, of like touring, and Tasha's been booking all of our tours since like, the beginning of the band, and it was like honestly like 7 years ago. She was like, I need like some sort of like software tool to do this. And at the time, there really wasn't that many options available. I mean, there's a few that we found that are like for like really huge bands, but we wanted to build something that was more for people that were like doing more DIY, that were just like in van tours, just doing stuff that, that we've been doing. And, so I 7 years ago built version one, and it's taken that long to now, like, actually we got to the point where we're okay, really buckling down. And now we just released version two. It's still in sort of like beta preview modes, which is why we're like rolling it out slowly to our friends and family and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just a platform to help artists just manage their tours, basically like a virtual tour manager. You input all of your data, you'll get day sheets. And the goal and the vision is like, every band member having an app on on their telephone, on their cell phone, where they basically, they can just take one look at it and just know where they have to be, or if they're like driving, like how much time it's going to take to get to the
Yeah.
next location, that sort of thing. But it's awesome. It's been really helpful for us, so we're very excited. And like also the idea of like, AI integrations to help actually plan tours, and
Yeah.
with the idea of like the more that you use it, the more data the system has to sort of help you, so like in addition to like actual just like straight up calendaring and scheduling, like there's the idea of like inputting all of your data, like, all like the financial
Upload your
aspects, like
lists, see where your
upload
fans
all
are
the
at.
lists. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, just using that to like just help you plan your tours out, and that's the whole idea, is just making our lives easier, for the people that are actually doing it. And it could be not just for bands, but for like tour, like legit tour managers, for labels, that sort of thing. We built it so that, anyone from like very small DIY level can use it to like huge labels, so very excited.
Yeah. I think there was a
I got
couple of like approaches. Like first of all, it was like anything that needs a spreadsheet should be featured in Tour Router. So
Yeah.
like I was keeping spreadsheets of like,
Mm.
okay, here are contacts. Who do I need to get in touch with? Where are we staying? What time do we need to
Mhm.
leave? And so like anytime there's been a need for a spreadsheet, it's like, oh, this is a feature that we should put in. And it's kind of fun. We're in the building stages still, so like anybody that's using it that has input, like send it our way, absolutely, because we're like, okay,
Yeah.
cool, let's build that in. I'm because I'm actively booking 3 tours for us. I'm building spring, summer, and fall tours right now. Every single time I run into like something, I'm like, oh, this should be a feature. Like I want to have a street team feature where you actually remember who you send posters to, and it keeps a database. All of this is secure, by the way. Like that was something that was also important, is that each artist that has their login, like all of that information is secure specifically for that artist.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, no, it's also it's honestly to just to
Imagine a
be able
push
to.
notification that's like, um, your show in Las Vegas is 7 days away. Have you and you haven't sent an email to the person to like
Exactly.
what's it called? Do the like whole follow up before we play there thing. Advance. If you
Yeah,
haven't
the whole
advanced,
advance. Yeah.
it's been 7 days. It's been 3 days. Like little notifications. It's like shows you
I
like,
love that
did
idea,
you
though. Right now.
advance? And you yeah, and like checking off like I have advanced, so don't notify me again, you know? But apps give you push notifications. Like that's a huge
Yeah.
benefit of apps that I just, recently discovered.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, for
that's
sure.
been a big thing. It's like what I love is that with the push notifications, my bandmates do not have to ask me where we're gonna be the next day, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Gosh, what time do we have to leave? I mean, I love them. I do
Yeah.
love them. But it's nice, very nice having like just the push of like, oh, they just check tour router and then they know what time they have to wake up. So
Yeah.
yeah.
One feature that I really love is that when we're on the road and like Google or whatever tells you it takes X amount of time to get to a certain place, like you all know, and like we all know that that is not the actual time it takes. Like you have to pad that time. It's like if you want to get someplace by like 5 p.m. or 2 p.m. for load in, and Google's like, oh, it takes 4 hours to get there, that it's actually like 5.5 to 6 hours with gas stops and food stops and all that stuff. And so we actually built into
A buffer time.
to the
Buffer
app
zone.
like literally like a buffer time for like when you're planning out your tour routings, like in like your day sheet and everything. Like there's actually a little calculator that'll calculate all that for you using the algorithm that we have. But I'm going to make it so that like any user can put in their own algorithm. They're like, if it's more than a 5 hour drive time, pad it by like an hour. It might be different for some other bands, but that's like, we're really excited about that because like we're always like trying to figure that out every day. We're like, okay, it takes like there's like daylight savings time, and you're going into different time zones and all that stuff.
Time
It's like
zones.
we've gotten like we've had some incidents where we're like staying in a a hotel that's like in a different time zone than the venue, but they're like right across like the time zone line. So it's like, and that's been like something I really want to make sure that we build into that
Ooh,
too. Is
it
just,
would be cool is
mhm.
like if like a if else if uh if the drive is like 4 hours or something like that, then it suggests hotels because you can't really
Mhm.
you can't really like uh stay at a hotel if you have to drive 8 or 9 hours from like
Right.
Denver to Salt Lake City or something like that. You're like, we have to drive overnight. Like, there's nothing we can
Right.
do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But if it's in Texas and you're like Houston to Dallas, it should automatically like offer like a hotels.com like discount or something, some kind of booking that's like,
Yeah.
hey, you guys have a short drive. Like, do you want to book a hotel at a certain place
I love
just to
that.
get some sleep?
Yeah, that's
Oh my
awesome.
God. I'm just like
I love
taking
that.
notes here. Like, yeah. I'll be
I love
building
it.
that stuff for
It's
sure.
such a cool,
Yeah.
it's so needed. Like the whole tour router idea. I love it. It's
Awesome.
super needed. There's nothing currently that can really do that.
Yeah.
It can really not like, yeah, you can like give there's like a master tour. It's like, hey,
Master
here's
tour. Yeah.
here's our spreadsheet for the day or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
here's when you have to show up, but there's nothing that like is a true companion
Yeah.
to the planning process.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's the
Yeah.
entire goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been loving the feature of the drive calculator because that's usually me. I'm like usually doing the math. I'm like, okay, and it's built in with padding too, because we've trying to figure it out, like for
Nice.
this many hours, like you need to pad it like a certain amount. So that's
Yeah.
kind of built in, which is so awesome. I'm like, yay. I mean it's obviously good to use your brain and have the maths, but it is nice to be able to just like input and then use my brain for other things. So yes.
Yeah.
Very helpful assistance. By the way, Miguel is asking if the app will help guitar players stop flirting with girls at the bar and help loading out.
Definitely. Definitely. I
Yeah.
promise.
Yeah,
We'll
like
have-
push
Yeah.
notifications on like loadout, like when you have to actually instead of like honking the horn or
Yeah.
being like
For
waiting
sure.
around, like push notification 30 minutes till like leave time. Like
Ooh,
every band member
yes.
should get, hey, it's 30 minutes until the planned leave time, so push notification.
I love
Like
that for sure. Absolutely.
and maybe something that says like uh right before the leave time, do a, what are they called, a dummy check.
Yeah. Don't
Mm,
Like,
forget the dummy check.
don't
Right.
forget the
yeah,
dummy check. Yes.
so you don't like leave stuff.
That's
Yeah.
one thing that would be kind of cool because like having maybe a checklist of like a master checklist of stuff that you want to put input. If you, I mean, that can be very time consuming to actually take that time, but can also save you having to rebuy gear. So yeah.
Well, yeah, like what can you insert right now? Can you insert what was your cash sales? What was your
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah.
That's like
sales tracking
that's part of like
stuff?
this whole version 2 is like having the ability to track all the financial
Yeah,
like data for each show,
like
because that's a whole
this,
pain as well.
and then you could see your like lifetime value, if you will, your
Mhm.
LTV of a certain city. Like this, like every time you go here, even though it's like a B market or a C market or something, you crush sales wise.
Yep. Yep.
So
That's the
consider
whole
that
idea.
when you're like
Hmm.
planning the tour.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's actually included right now. Is that you basically when you're putting in all the details, so it includes like how big the venue is, like a rough estimate of attendance, how much money you
Capacity.
made, so capacity, and like and then when you're building out future tours, like I mean that can be a consideration. Now when I take on shows, I look at many factors. There's routing, there's like, oh, there's a lot of love in this place, and it might be small but there's so much love, so there's the love factor. But if you want to look at
Yeah.
just
What's the
like
love
those,
score
what's a love
of
score?
this?
Yes, this is
Yeah,
yes.
there's got to be
There has to be a
Yeah.
love
algorithm.
score for
Yeah, how do I love it? Yeah, like, do I love it? Or like, what's the sales score, versus the love
Hmm.
score?
Yeah. But yeah, it actually keeps track of all that. So then when you're building future tours, it can remind you like, hey, this is a city that
Hmm.
that you had a really strong show. And then you consider then it can consider it when you're building like the future tour. So it's all dynamic. So
Yeah.
it will base what you need based on what your like data is. So
So cool.
we're very
So
excited
freaking
about
cool.
Yeah.
And it helps
Yeah.
when our friends like yourself are out there and using it and coming up with like ideas and thoughts because I mean we even though we're all touring, like we all have different experiences and perspectives of it,
Yeah.
for sure, and I feel like that's something
Yeah.
where we can all learn from each other you know
Yeah. And the beautiful thing is like, I could roll out features in like within 24 hours. So if anyone who's like using it has a suggestion, I could literally just like roll it out, within a day. Or, and
So
also like
cool.
fix any bugs too, obviously. But that's the benefit of like being a developer
A
as well.
genius,
So like I'm able to just I do what I can, but
having a big brain.
brain is big. Yes.
big brain, small head. I don't know.
Oh, this is a cool suggestion. Also, Ed, I love your questions today. What about finding places to eat? Because Tosh is picky. Actually, I'm not picky. I am literally the person that will eat anything, but I love the idea of like finding
You got to
places
have
to eat.
Yeah.
on the tour router, like anytime you're within like a 50-mile radius of a Buc-ee's, it's got to be like
I thought you were gonna say
Buc-ee's
Waffle
alert.
House too for some reason.
That's
I was
another
like,
tour
Waffle
staple,
House.
yes, Waffle
Oh
House.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when what's open, like
Yeah,
what's open for food.
Yeah.
it's
It's
actually
always
really
kind
good.
of cool
Waffle House.
when you run into places that are not like the standard diner. It's just like random, like wow, a Thai place that opens till 4 in the morning.
Yeah,
But
on the
yeah, that
back
would
end
be
of a gas station.
right.
Yeah,
Yes, but that is a
yeah.
very, very fun.
We were also thinking of like internally, like having like a database of venues, but also having the ability for all the users of Tour Router to like either leave reviews or ratings on each venue and like tips and tricks and that sort of thing, or idiosyncrasies and stuff like that. So that might be an interesting thing.
I can see like two account styles, like open it, like are you a band or are you a agent or are you both? Like, and
Right.
something that can like suggest where you can keep like a database of all of your venues, like if you're because there's like the bands, um, like all of the features that could help the band do X, Y, and Z, for the tour.
For sure.
But then like for the agent, like there could also be specific, like, I don't know, features that kind of benefit the planning part. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that actually.
For sure.
Because I didn't even think about that. That's such a great idea. Oh man. Yeah, I think Tosh mentioned you're thinking of perhaps bringing on like promoters and other booking agents onto whatever it is that we're doing here, Unwritten Rules of the Road, but to sort of get their perspective as well. So that's like going to be really fun to sort of trade places, if you will.
Yeah, that's one thing I was thinking. It's like because we have the artist perspective, but like, from some of the people I've spoken to that are promoters and venue owners, like they've mentioned like, oh, here's the way I like to be approached, like there's a certain, protocol. And everyone's different, but like just kind of a general protocol of like, hey, this is how I like, a lot of people are like, please email me. Like don't DM me on social media, like just please email me. Like things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, like there could be the promoter's account where they're not a band, they're also not an agent, but they do shows in Las Vegas. So they, and what's their preferred method of contact? Maybe it's Instagram DMs. So they can just click a box like Instagram DMs is the way I like to do it, or email or text or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love
that. It's a big interconnected web of like bands, agents, promoters, local bands, touring bands, like all of the ingredients.
Yeah. There are definitely a lot of moving parts when it comes to the live music community for sure. I mean, and they're all so needed, but it's just it's a lot of stuff to keep up with for sure. So yes, even with big brains, one can forget details. So
especially with big brains.
Well, Jared, thank you so much for hanging out with us and for sharing your insight and your wisdom. Like you're such an inspiring artist, and we're very grateful and honored for you to share your time with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love you guys. My pleasure. Would, even not on a podcast or anything live. I always love hanging out with you guys. And it's been
Yeah.
cool connecting with you like in person and seeing your guys' band, come through and crush. Like you guys are so
It was
tight.
so fun hanging with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you guys.
And we can't wait to see ARKAIK. Absolutely cannot wait to see it. So let us know when you are playing in SoCal, because I'm very excited about getting to experience it.
Yeah, we're going.
Oh, yes.
Whole band's coming.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
much love, much love. And thank y'all for hanging out on our stream with us. Thank you for your amazing questions. Like, you guys are awesome. Like, I just love the perspectives and well, there's been a lot of fun questions today too.
Yeah.
So yes. We're gonna be next week we're gonna be streaming with Alice. And then we're gonna be doing Unwritten Rules of the Road again the following week. We're just gonna be going every other week. So we will hopefully see y'all at our next Sunday stream.
All right. Well, see you later.
Awesome.